This is a FarmDoc Daily webinar. I'm University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason. Thank you for being with us for Cover Crops 101, Maximizing Benefits for Midwest Farmers. We're joined today by Laura Gentry, Zach Wells, Gary Schnitke, and Megan Miller. We'll talk about environmental benefits, farmer experiences, some about the economics of cover crops, and of course, how cost share works. We'll begin with Laura Gentry. She's with Illinois Corn Growers Association, a water quality specialist. Good day to you, Laura. Thank you for being with us. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thanks so much, Todd, and hello, friends. Thank you all for joining in on our webinar today, and we'll be talking through everything cover crops. And I'll be beginning here with some information about the benefits of cover crops. Really, I'm going to be chatting through more on just an overview about the benefits of cover crops and turning you over to find some really great resources about cover crops. And then talk a little bit about the impacts that the farmers and the Precision Conservation Management Program have had in terms of reaching the goals of things like the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy and climate goals. So specifically using cover crops. Then we get to hear from a PCM farmer, Zach Wells from Homer, Illinois, then over to Gary, and then wrap up with Megan Miller from Illinois Soybean Association on different kinds of programs we can participate in as PCM farmers. If I can get started here a little bit about the PCM program, all the data that you're going to see today, the environmental type of data, the economics data, and then all the programs that Megan's going to be talking about are offered through the Precision Conservation Management Program and the great partners of PCM. And PCM is a farmer service program, began in 2015 with the help of an NRCS Regional Conservation Partnership Program grant that we received that really launched us. We're a farmer first program. Everything that we do is focused on helping farmers to keep farming, to stay in business, and to maintain their independence relatively free from environmental regulations, because we think that we can manage our nutrients and our soils best when we have the freedom to innovate. So that's a lot of what the PCM program is about, helping farmers to find the best conservation practices for them. And if you are interested in learning even more about the PCM program, I hope you will tune in next week. We have a fourth webinar in our PCM webinar series, and that is going to be led by Greg Goodwin, the director of the PCM program. He'll give some background on PCM, all the work that we are doing to help farmers. We have Clay Best that'll be joining us. He's the operations manager for the PCM program. He'll be talking more about the interactions between the PCM specialists and the farmers that they work with in the PCM program. And we have Rachel Curry from the University of Illinois Extension talking about the nutrient loss reduction strategy. So the nutrient loss reduction strategy is really what was the initial momentum for us to start the PCM program. And we'll be talking more about that in just a minute too. I just mentioned the PCM specialist, and I brought up Clay Best, who will be on next week's webinar. Clay is the operations manager. He oversees the training and the day-to-day work of the PCM specialists. This is our team. These are the farmers who work with us in the 31 counties in Illinois that you see here, where the PCM program serves. We also serve 5 large counties in Nebraska with our specialists, as you see there, Darren Kudaback. And we have Chris Stewart in Kentucky, where we work with 10 counties in western part of Kentucky. And Chris is our specialist there. So this is our team. If you see one of them for one of your regions, reach out to them and join the PCM program. We've got more about that coming up. Probably the best recognized deliverable from the PCM program outside of what we do with our one-on-one with our farmers is this booklet right here, The Business Case for Conservation. It comes out every year, and it is a high-level overview of all of the data to date in the PCM database. And we do that in conjunction with the University of Illinois and with Dr. Schnitke, and it gives a lot of really excellent, up-to-date, and locally specific information for farmers to use when they're thinking about the business side of making a conservation decision, like adopting a cover crop or expanding use of some of their no-till perhaps, or looking more carefully at their nitrogen fertilizer application rates. So there's a lot of great information in here. It comes out every June, and we have more documents that come out on the FarmDoc Daily platform. So you can go there and look for more information. And then if you would like to just learn a little bit more about our program, how we got started, what we do, who we work with, and all of our great partners, then you can go here to our website, precisionconservation.org. I mentioned earlier that the PCM program really was initiated in response to this first document on the left here, the picture there. The Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy was released in 2015. That was the one all the way on the left. And then every other year, the team of folks get together and they compile a biennial report to say, how are we doing in terms of our goals of meeting the nutrient loss reduction strategy in Illinois? There were a total of 12 states in the Mississippi River Basin that were directed to create one of these blueprints for reaching those goals that you see there at the bottom. Every one of those 12 states had the same first goal there, that 45% reduction in total nitrogen and total phosphorus losses by 2035 from their respective state. That's what these nutrient loss reduction strategies were intended to be, a blueprint, not just for agriculture, but for everyone who contributes nitrogen and phosphorus, so non-point sources as well. In Illinois, we also have an interim goal, which is coming right up. By 2025, our goal is to have a 15% reduction in nitrate nitrogen and a 25% reduction in total phosphorus losses from the state of Illinois. So these are, and we have always realized that these were lofty goals. These were stretch goals for the state of Illinois. We are working very hard to be sure that in agriculture that we are moving in the right direction to attain the goals and to meet the expectations for reducing our nitrogen and phosphorus losses. When the nutrient loss reduction strategy was being developed in between really 2012 and 2015, there was a team of scientists that was led by a professor at the University of Illinois, Dr. Mark David, and you can see our own Dr. Schnicke was part of that team as well as the economics lead. And all of these researchers, scientists, and faculty and staff were working towards developing a better understanding of how much nitrate nitrogen is really being lost, how much phosphorus is being lost from the state of Illinois. They set a baseline period that was 1980 to 1996. And with their research and their work, they determined that these were the total amounts that you see there on the screen. That is what we're being asked to, when we say we're being asked to reduce our nitrogen and phosphorus losses, that is the baseline level that they're being asked to reduce them from. So that's very important to the whole goal. Then they broke it down by regions, how much nitrogen, phosphorus is being lost from different regions. And then they developed these management practice strategies and scenarios. And that's what I'm going to show here next. And this is actually important, and it highlights why cover crops are so important, why the Illinois corn growers, the Illinois Soybean Association, why our commodity associations and our agricultural organizations are asking farmers to try and find a way to bring cover crops onto your farms, because we know they're very effective towards meeting the goals of the Illinois Nutrient Loss Reduction Strategy. And many of us in agriculture feel that if there are regulations that are going to be considered and a case being made against agriculture to meet environmental goals, we think much of it is going to be based around these nutrient and water quality types of issues. So cover crops address that, and we believe that they do it the most effectively of the practices that we are considering. So we have these infield practices here in green. If you can see my arrow, we have this green block here that are showing this list of practices that farmers can use. And the green are all infield practices. This bluish purple periwinkle color are our edge of field practices. And here in yellow is and orange are land use change, like taking land out of production, converting it over to perennial grasses, things like that. At the Illinois corn growers and within the PCM program as a whole, we are focused on these infield management practices right here. This is where we believe that farmers have the most control over this. It has the best return, and it's actually stopping nutrients from leaving your field. You're keeping the nitrogen and the phosphorus that you applied with great care and paid for at great expense with these practices. So we really focus on those. And when you take a look at all of those and you see just how effective each one of those can be, cover crops have the greatest potential to get us the greatest way towards both our nitrogen loss and our phosphorus loss goals. So this is just one example highlighting their potential for nitrate nitrogen loss reductions. They do it the most cost effectively of the infield practices. So we're really, even though they do introduce more risk, they do introduce more cost to the operation. They have a lot of benefits for conservation and a lot of benefits for agriculture. And I'm not going to go into those in any kind of great detail. There's some really great resources out there, but I do appreciate the way that cover crops are being depicted here as kind of this Swiss Army knife tool that you can use to address a lot of different issues that we face as farmers. They can reduce soil compaction. They can provide nitrogen if you're including a legume in it. They're very effective at preventing soil erosion, as you'll see in just a minute. They can improve yields, and very importantly, we know that they can increase resiliency during difficult periods like different weather patterns, drought, and increased rainfall. So these are some things that we are seeing and why we are believing that there can be some other benefits aside from the water quality benefits that we are hoping to see as farmers are increasingly adopting these to help address the different nutrient loss goals of the nutrient loss reduction strategy. If you all are looking for some really great resources, both to demonstrate the benefits of cover crops and some excellent resources for management of cover crops, everything from what to do about moles and voles, which seed mixes address this kind of an issue or that kind of an issue, just lots of good practical information, residual herbicide considerations. You could look to some of the resources, both from the Illinois Soybean Association. You can just look up any of their Illinois Soy Advisor webinars that they offer and many other resources on that website. And there's a brand new book that is hot off the press from Dr. Robert Myers at the University of Missouri, who works for the Center for Regenerative Agriculture. He's the director of that effort. And this book is really excellent. I just got hands on it 2 days ago and have been looking through it, and it's great. So I would encourage you to look for that. And now just quickly some impacts from the PCM program, the practices that we have been seeing increasingly adopted just in the last 3 years shown here, but you can see the increase in reduced tillage acres among farmers in the PCM program, our increased nitrogen management, which essentially means farmers reducing their nitrogen from their traditional rate down to the university's MRTN, maximum return to nitrogen rate. And then the use of cover crops. And we're so proud of these cover crop acreage values that we more than doubled between 2021 and 2022. In total, we have over 1 million acres just in the past 3 years of conservation practices that have been on the ground through the PCM farmers in our program. And here is the impacts of those cover crops and other conservation practices. And the things I really like to highlight here is that dark brown bar for sediment loss reduction, phosphorus loss, and nitrate nitrogen loss. Those big jumps that you see relative to the previous years are largely the product of farmers using cover crops because they have such an outside positive benefit on reducing our nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment losses. And just wrap this up quickly with a demonstration of how farmers are reducing soil losses. Your topsoil, is your most valuable asset as a farmer, and losing that to wind and water erosion is just a real sad thing for farmers and reduces your overall productivity. So we can see here that according to the tools that we are using through our partner, the Field to Markets Field Print Calculator, we see that relative to farmers, this is a head of corn, farmers using no cover crop versus an overwintering cover crop, you can really reduce your soil erosion losses ahead of corn. And similarly for soybean, we see higher overall losses from soybean fields because of the less residue that's produced in those systems. But you can see that there is like a 30% reduction by implementing an overwintering cover crop. when you can. And if you can also reduce your tillage in that system as well, you're doing a really excellent job as a steward for your fields. And so wrap this up with a little bit of information on our carbon credits that the farmers that are in our program are seeing lots and lots of opportunities to work with other partners through the PCM program, partners like PepsiCo and Walmart, also partners like our USDA Climate Smart grants through our Field to Market, and the Farmers for Soil Health program are offering lots of opportunities for farmers to generate these carbon assets that they can then sell. And this just really highlights how effective cover crops are, better than really any other practice that is available to farmers in most cases. So the orange bar here is showing cover crops grown ahead of corn. When there is no cover crop, a more traditional system, corn system in Illinois, our estimates that are coming from the Cool Farm tool that we use to estimate greenhouse gases show that farmers are having a net greenhouse gas emissions of around 0.59 metric tons of CO2 equivalents per acre. But when they grow a cover crop ahead of that corn crop, they go net negative. They're actually sequestering 0.3 metric tons of CO2 equivalents. And for soybean, it's tremendous. Soybean has just less of an overall carbon footprint, but it's about net neutral. It's about zero, according to the Cool Farm tool, for growing cover crops without growing soybeans without any cover crop. But you can sequester over a metric ton, almost 1.25 metric tons of CO2 equivalents. And that carries a significant value for farmers who are willing to look at markets and other incentive opportunities through NRCS or the partners in the PCM program that you'll be learning about towards the end of this webinar. So now I'm going to turn it over to our farmer, Zach Wells, to tell you more about his personal experience with growing cover crops.
All right. Thank you, Laura, and appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my perspective of using cover crops, how we kind of got started doing it, where we've taken it, and where we plan to go forward with it. So just kind of a brief introduction. Live in Southeast Champaign County. We farm in Champaign, Vermilion, and Edgar counties. Been farming for about 10 years on my own, or financially involved, I guess, is a good way of putting it. I'm a skip generation farmer. So my grandparents farm, my parents do not farm. And then I started farming with my wife's family. Like I said, that was about 10 years ago. So about 8 years ago, I kind of wanted to get started with some cover crops, and I believe it was Illinois Corn. Had a program where you could do, and they either heavily subsidized it, or maybe it might have been free, but you could do 40 acres of cover crops. So I decided to kind of get in by doing that, and that kind of took the risk of any cost off the table. And from that point, just started to learn and go with it. So I started with 40 acres of rye, cereal rye, ahead of soybeans, and 40 acres of oats and radish ahead of corn. All three of these pictures, the pictures on the left and the right are the cereal rye, and the center picture would be the oats and radish mix. These are a little more current than the 8 years ago, but after doing that initial jump, I guess, it kind of took the pressure off. It wasn't as scary as it seemed. From the outside looking in, it seems like just such a tremendous jump from a traditional way of doing things and going into a cover cropping system. But basically from that 8 years ago of 40 acres, I've come to about 400 acres of cereal rye ahead of soybeans. And, there's been challenges along the way. Personally, I haven't had any disasters where we've had, significant loss, yield, or, economically. It could happen. There's always a risk. And I think that's where programs like PCM, and there's other government programs where you can kind of get kind of an insurance against maybe some of that risk with some help, either paying for crops, the cover crops, or you know, incentivizing the acres that you do the cover crops on with a small payment. So we went to eventually made it to the 400 or so acres of cereal rye. Like I said, we've had some issues with, you know, we terminate, which would be the photo on the right. The beans are already planted in that photo, but we've terminated early, and then we get into a wet spell, and that rye more or less acts like a sponge and kind of just keeps things damp. We've had the opposite, you know, where we've terminated and it stays dry, and in that scenario, we just are able to kind of go in and plant like we normally would. So again, no major issues on my end. I don't know that I can say every year we see a specific benefit. I liked the slide with the Swiss Army knife, because there are infinite number of scenarios with weather and farming that there's no one scenario that will happen every single time. There's always a little bit of variation. So, you know, we have not had any significant yield increases. We have not had any significant yield decreases. And I think that's where it becomes difficult to measure. And PCM certainly helps with that when they're bringing in and kind of quantifying not only what you're doing, but what others are doing in comparison with what you're doing, and then kind of comparing it to other ways of doing things on the operation. So, for instance, cover crops versus more of a traditional, same farmer, myself, just different acres. So that kind of helps at least put it in perspective. You may not be gaining a whole lot economically, but you're not necessarily getting burned very bad. So from this point, with the rye, I'm gonna be switching it up a little bit going into the future, with probably a multi-species mix ahead of corn that is likely not going to overwinter. So that'd be that center picture. I think you can probably all see that is an oats and radish blend, and that is here where I live, and that is just taken Saturday. So that blend gets flown on. It's flown on around Labor Day by an airplane, and this year we had excellent weather. We got some nice rains, then we had some very warm weather, and we were able to get that cover crop well established. And in this picture, it's still somewhat green, but it is on its way out the door. We had 20-degree temperatures for several different nights here just a couple weeks ago. So it is going to die, and the strips through that were done on Saturday and Sunday. That's another pivot that I've decided to go down that road of strip till. So we just strip tilled right through that, and we'll come back and plant right into that in the spring. So that's kind of, that center picture is more of what the future could look like. Still plan on doing some cereal rye, but there are just some challenges with labor, Mother Nature, and timing with soybeans and terminating the rye and just getting it all accomplished. So again, not going away, but just kind of a pivot to something that overwinters and staying ahead of corn. So like I said, I have not necessarily seen any decrease in productivity or yield. It's easy to say it was this or it was that, and cover crops, you could easily just point the finger and say, well, I was 2 bushel or 3 bushel less because of that. But there are, again, an infinite number of scenarios as the season goes, and before the season even starts, that could come back to that maybe not yielding as well. And I think that's where guys are up and a little nervous that it's just gonna really come back and bite them. I've seen a lot of scenarios in my own experiences and in others where we think this is just gonna really hurt, or we're really going to take it on the chin because of this, because of the cover crop. And we get to harvest and we find out, okay, we did get a little bit burned, but it really wasn't that bad. And we're going to come out better on the other side because we had this, either the cover crop got bigger or, we didn't terminate as early, but, all that kind of gets stored in the ground. We didn't just lose out. We lost a few bushels, but we didn't, it's not a lose-lose. There's a win in there somewhere. So I think that's kind of important to kind of focus on when it comes to that. So I touched a little bit on PCM. And again, I think that's really made the picture a little more clear when we meet in the winter and the summer, and we can kind of quantify what happened the year before, or with the covers and with strip till or the nitrogen management, quantifying that or comparing that to other practices done by others. For me anyway, kind of puts it, you can stand back and look at that, and where, a certain field or farm, I might think I really didn't do very well, or my yield wasn't there, or, something happened. You can kind of step back and look at that comparative analysis and just say and see, you really weren't that far off, I guess. You kind of fit in the middle as a whole. And if you were off, you just have to figure out what it was. I mean, it could have been the covers, it could have been the weather, it could have been an infinite number of things. So I think that's really the best thing about PCM, just kind of sharing that data. So I think that really kind of covers what I was planning on saying. If there's any questions at any point at the end or whatever, I'd be happy to kind of share a little more on that and field any of those. So
yeah, thank you, Zach. And Zach brings up a good point. If you have any questions as we're going through this, please type them into the box there, and we will get to them. I'm going to go over the economics of cover crops again. I'm Gary Schnitke, and what I'm going to do is look at PCM results and quantify what we're seeing cover crops do on both cover crops going into soybeans and then going into corn. And just to back up a little bit, as we've already all know or have looked at, cover crops improve soil health over time, which should result in increased yield. So if we improve soil quality, we should see increased yields over time. In PCM data, we don't necessarily see the increased yields yet, and we would suggest that's because of one of two things. Cover crops have not been used long enough on PCM farms, as many of our farms are just beginning cover crops, and if there's these increases in soil health over time, you would expect that to be very slow, and the benefits to take a while to show up. And we really haven't had years in which cover crops where an increase in soil health, and let me just give you an example. If you think of a year like 2012, that's when soil health would come into play. We saw much, for example, during that year on corn yields, we saw much lower yields for corn after corn versus corn after soybeans. And most years that wouldn't show a difference. So those years where we have soil health increases, we haven't had a drought or really a bad year. Well, we might call 2019 a bad year, but we didn't see any yield losses from cover crops or not cover crops. The other thing is cover crops, and the literature is pretty clear about this, that you should expect cost in the initial years because the learning curve associated with the technology. Anytime you, I would not underestimate the, we're putting in new technology out there, and it's just going to take some time to learn about things and for the management to understand what's going on. And again, soil health increases slowly over time. One of the things that we continue to see, and not only in PCM but elsewhere, cover crops from corn to soybeans. So the first crop is corn, and going into soybeans appears to be the best place to start. It's easier to get that process going. We have a bit more challenges in cover crops and corn. If you go to the business case summary, here's what you will see there on our comparison, and this is soybeans with a cover crop and without a cover crop. I am going to focus on two columns there, the no cover crop, so those fields did not have a cover crop. We divide these fields up, no cover crop, overwintering, and again, go to the business case and you can see those. I'm going to look at the overwintering case in which the cover crop, usually cereal rye, isn't terminated by freezing and again grows in the spring. And just a couple of points here. There is a yield difference between no cover crops and overwintering, 2 bushels. Actually, when we do a deeper analysis of that, if you compare no-till systems with and without cover crops, there isn't a difference in yields. We do see a bit lower yields for no-till fields than we do for one tillage pass or more tillage. And for whatever reason, there's a bit of a yield loss when we go to no-till, and more of our cover crop fields are no-till. We also know that, notice here that land costs have increased, and that's generally because of planting and seed costs associated with cover crops. Now, this is looking at all of the fields in PCM. What we're going to now focus on is the experience with the top 25% profitable fields with cover crops. So we're going to look at those fields that have that are the higher profitability and give results for those. Again, because just to look at those fields and get some learning going on here. Here's what we typically see, and this is corn going into soybeans. We harvest the corn and then we plant the cover crops. The species typically is cereal rye, although we do see some barley. And again, when I'm saying typical, I'm looking at the top 25%. Cereal rye seems to be the species to use from corn going into soybeans. And what we see is they harvest the corn, and then the cover crop is applied by either drill or spread and worked in. Actually, the farmers that do more cover crops tend to do B, spread it and then work it in, and that is prime because it's faster. It's a much faster, and in central Illinois, where most of our PCM farms are at, we don't have many up-to-date drills, I guess I would say. So spreading and working in is faster, and that may continue even if we had a drill. Then in the spring, we obviously plant the soybeans, and we see termination either occur before we plant or after we plant, and it's pretty equally divided between the two. Obviously, if we're terminating after a plant, we're spraying a glyphosate or glufosinate, so we have to have a GMO soybean there. That planting and preparation planting costs are around $30 per acre, and we see some people have more, some people less, but $30 will get you in the ballpark. The termination costs don't vary with or without cover crop fields, and when we look at that, I mean that termination, you're generally doing that either way. We do see a yield advantage either way. Cover crops or no cover crops with planting early in soybeans, and we don't see any statistically difference in yields between cover crops and no cover crops. Again, we're not seeing a yield loss with cover crops, but we're not also seeing a yield gain. Maybe that will occur in time, but again, we're not seeing that with the PCM data. And when we do break fields out by number of years, we don't see it either. So we haven't seen that If we're using cover crops, then to keep it roughly the same profitability without some sort of cost share, we have to lower costs somewhere if we aren't getting a yield advantage. And the most likely place we're going to be able to do that is by lowering herbicide costs. And we do see our top 25% of fields having lower herbicide costs. So that seems, again, this is soybeans going on in the corn plant after. And again, this is the 25% which predominate, the practices that predominate in that top 25% use cereal rye, although we do see some barley, drill or spread it in, and then terminate it near planting. Again, just saying that cereal rye is one of the most used species. Having said that, it's the most used species in all of them. Drilled number one, but broadcast with fertilizer in one pass is where we're moving, and we actually do see $25 per acre less than pesticide costs for our cover crop, top 25%. Moving into corn, we have just a note here. On corn, we have lower yields with using cover crops. Part of that, again, is because if you're using cover crops, we do see a lot more no-till there. And we do see higher non-land cost. Again, we're working through some of those things. But right now, as we're looking at PCM, we don't see a system that predominates in the top 25%. We have many farms that are using 2 or more species. Radishes and oats, like as Zach mentioned, are one of those. I wouldn't say it predominates, but it's one of those. And if it is a single species, we still see cereal rye used a lot. Many more of the fields have terminal cover crops. So soybeans, we tend to see overwintering cereal rye. In corn, we see less of those. We see more terminal cover crops. I suspect that then once the crop is terminated, then in spring we don't sequester the nitrogen that the corn can use. And we also see more tillage than in the soybean case. It's fairly common, almost universal, that you don't do tillage with cover crops on our top 20%. We do see more tillage, either strip till or one pass slide. So I would just say that there's less of a formula for cover crops before corn. For soybeans, we're getting closer and closer to what's pretty standard and what seems to be in the top 25%. I'm going to turn this over to Megan now, and she's going to talk about cover crop funding opportunities.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Gary. I really appreciate it. I'm Megan Miller, and I'm the Agronomic Programs Manager at the Illinois Soybean Association, working with PCM and Illinois corn growers and Dr. Schnittke. So happy to be here today. So there are a few different ways you can receive funding for cover crops right now. There is public funding, both at the state and federal level. So at the federal level, there are USDA Farm Bill programs. So these are your EQIP and your CSP. There's also been more money added to those programs recently through the Inflation Reduction Act. And the USDA has also released their Partnerships for Climate Smart Commodities, which have a lot of funding for cover crops in them as well. And there will be, I think, around 23 of those programs available in Illinois, and 2 of them will be available specifically through PCM. There are also some state level programs such as Fall Covers for Spring Savings and Partners for Conservation. Fall Covers for Spring Savings is, a crop insurance buy-up, and then Partners for Conservation is run through the different soil and water conservation districts. And then there are also private programs that provide cover crop funding, and these are either will pay for practice or they are carbon and ecosystem service markets. So most of these programs are funded by folks like PepsiCo, or ADM, other people that are in the grain value chain, and so they often are claiming the carbon asset that goes with that. So just something to keep in mind. So, and then there are ways you can combine these sources of funding to really help you get over some of that hump of implementing cover crops for the first time. So we'll go through how you can stack some of these things as well. So the first funding source I want to talk about specifically for PCM is their RCPP, which is USDA NRCS administered cover crop program. This is available in 20 Illinois counties, and those are circled with the black circle there. So if you are farming in one of those counties, reach out to your specialist, enroll in PCM, and they can help you work with your USDA NRCS office to get enrolled in those programs. This is a program specifically set aside for PCM for cover crops, and so USDA works directly with growers that we recommend to them for that. So this is a type of public funding and could be stacked potentially with private funding, such as a carbon market. PCM is also partnered with Field to Market, PepsiCo, Walmart, and the USDA to offer the cover crop incentives you see here. PepsiCo and Walmart share the claim on the carbon asset from these, but if you are implementing cover crops for the first or second year, you can receive $15 an acre, and if you are planting cover crops that are 3 years or older, you can receive $10 an acre. One thing we're really happy about at the PCM program is that Pepsi and Walmart are interested in past acres, or not necessarily past acres, but interested in working with farmers that are leaders in this space and have been doing this a long time. So there is an incentive payment for these programs if you have been cover cropping for a decent amount of time. So this is one funding opportunity. And because the funding for the cover crops in this grant comes from PepsiCo and Walmart, we are able to stack it with this additional opportunity, which is another Climate Smart that PCM is participating in, called Farmers for Soil Health. This is a 3-year program. You do have to enroll for 3 years, and you receive 25 acres year one, or $25 an acre year one, $15 an acre year two, and $10 an acre year three, and you can enroll up to 1,000 acres. They are also offering a $2 per acre payment for anyone that has been doing this for a long time. This is a program mostly focused on implementing new cover crop acres. And they will be setting up a digital marketplace, which will be connecting you to other ecosystem service opportunities, but that is still very much in the works. And so we'll be staying tuned to see how that works out. But again, this program is stackable with the Pepsi program, giving you a pretty good payment for cover crops in Illinois. So in addition to the programs that are offered by PCM, the PCM specialists work really hard to stay in the know about other programs in the state that might work better for you and your farm. And so if you have questions about any program in the state, reach out to your PCM specialist. And if they don't know, they will get up with me and we will try to figure out what we can find out for you. But if you're interested in doing a bit of research on your own on this, the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership, of which Illinois Corn, Illinois Soy, Extension are all a member, has a cover crop incentive directory, which goes through the different programs and also includes this really great stacking matrix, which shows you which programs you can stack together in order to increase your payment for cover crops in the state. And so if there is an X in the box, you are not able to stack it going across the left and across the top. And if there is a check, you are able to stack it. And so this is a way to increase your funding to get over some of those initial financial humps associated with the implementation of cover crops. So the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership also maintains a directory of cover crop seed dealers in the state. Feel free to use this to figure out who you can buy cover crops from. And if you are a cover crop seed dealer that is not included on this, you are able to go to the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnerships website and add your business information on there as well. So another resource for finding cover crops. And then finally, the Illinois Sustainable Ag Partnership has put together an overview of voluntary carbon markets for Illinois farmers. We've had some other webinars on carbon markets within this PCM series specifically, but these markets will pay you for cover cropping. A lot of times you do have to be doing a practice for the first time, so just ask your different market representatives, but there are 15 ecosystem service markets currently available in Illinois. Some of them are pay for practice, which is how PCM models their payments. Others are pay for outcomes, so they will actually pay you for tons of CO2 equivalent sequestered in your soil. Others are pay for outcomes on a per bushel model. This would happen at the point of sale at an elevator, and you would get a premium per bushel for those. And then there are also combinations of pay for practice and pay for outcome. And so it really, there is an opportunity for everyone in here. And so as part of this, we did ask how many people were enrolled in the state of Illinois in these programs. Not everyone answered, only about half did, but it was right under 3% of Illinois farmers are enrolled in one of these programs. And so lots of opportunity out there for funding. So if you are thinking about enrolling in one of these programs and want to get your steps together in order to make that happen, these are some things for you to think about going into that process. The first being, make sure you understand your conservation goals and pick a program that aligns with those. There's no shortage of programs, more than I've ever seen right now, and there should be a program for you based on your conservation goals out there, but make sure you're leading with that. For a lot of these, it's probably especially on the carbon market side, it may be too early to enroll your whole farm. Start with a few fields at a time, especially if you're enrolling in a program where you're having to make a practice change for the first time. You want to make sure you can get your agronomics right. You can start working through your system, go through some of the troubleshooting Zach talked about, and do that on a small scale as you and then scale up over the next few cropping seasons. Again, be prepared with good conservation agronomy and find a conservation agronomist to help you with your transition into conservation agriculture. So the Precision Conservation Management Program works very closely with Jim Iserman. He is an excellent resource. Abigail Peterson at the Illinois Soybean Association is an excellent resource. And yeah, Laura shared some great information from Rob Myers, lots of books out there, but find a good conservation agronomist, somebody you can call and bounce ideas off of as you are doing these cover cropping for the first time. And then a lot of these programs will require you to share data with them in order to receive your payment. That is how they do some proof that a conservation practice happened, such as cover cropping. And the Illinois Soybean Association put together a carbon data guidebook, which shows you the type of data you would need to share in order to get a payment for a carbon program or for some of these other conservation programs as well. One of the really great things about PCM is they do all of that data entry for you when you're enrolling in their incentive programs, really taking that burden off the farmer. And so that is a really great service and one that's very unique to the PCM program. So definitely recommend working with your specialist to get your data organized. So as you are enrolling in these different programs, there are a few things you want to watch out for. You want to pay attention to your contract length versus your land rental agreements, and just make sure you will be farming that field for the length of your contract, or understand whether or not you need your landlord to sign off on you participating in that program. You also want to understand what type of funding you're receiving. Is it a carbon program? Is it an inset program, an offset program, a federal conservation program, a state conservation program? Because understanding the source of the funding will allow you to be able to stack those programs. You cannot sell a carbon credit on the same acre twice, and you also cannot get paid from the federal and state government for the same practice on the same acre twice. And so you just want to avoid accidentally double dipping. Make sure you read your contract fine print and understand the full terms of your agreement, especially on the carbon program side of things. If you enroll program or a field that you know, for example, will be having a tiling project goes in. As soon as you start digging for those tile lines, you've released a lot of the carbon you've stored in the soil and will be voiding your contract. Also understand how these different programs will be using your data. The PCM data especially is very secure. That is something we really take a lot of pride on as a program. And we are not associated with any input providers or anything like that. And so your data would never be used to market anything back to you. Also pay attention to any verification that would need to happen to show that you did implement cover crops. Or do you need to provide receipts? Will somebody be visiting your field? All of them will do some modeling, and Zach and Laura and Gary all talked about some of the data from some of those models. And then satellites can also be used to verify cover crop implementation. And again, I said this earlier, just know whether or not a program, enrolling in one program excludes you from participating in another program, and make sure you review all your options as you are exploring this space. Again, there have been many cost share programs in Illinois for a long time through PCM, through some of our other conservation partners in the state. And those programs are now claiming the carbon assets on those. And so, just pay attention to that. Again, this helps you to be able to stack or not and increase your payment. And then finally, especially as all the climate smarts roll out, pay attention to what the practice standards are for the specific program you're enrolling in. For example, just because the climate smarts are funded by the USDA, it does not necessarily mean the practice standards are the same as they would be for EQIP or CSP. And so, really make sure you're talking to your program rep and the NRCS when you're thinking about enrolling in anything with federal funding. So that is what I have for cover crop programs, and we can kick it back over to Todd to wrap up the webinar and get any questions answered.
Indeed, we'll get those questions in just a moment. A reminder that we've been talking today on this FarmDoc Daily webinar with Megan Miller. She just presented. She's with the Illinois Soybean Association. Gary Schnitke also with us from the University of Illinois, and the FarmDoc team. Zach Wells is a farmer here in Champaign County near Homer, and a cover cropper, Laura Gentry, joined us as well. And you can ask questions of all four of them. Laura, of course, is a water quality specialist at the Illinois Corn Growers Association. They have given you a lot of resources. There are many folks that can help you out. They've mentioned several of them, from the corn growers to the Soybean Association, the specialist at PCM, and of course here on campus, you can contact one of two people that can really help you out as well. Giovanni Prezafontes has about 7 years of cover crops background. That was his research area. He is the Illinois Extension agronomist and located on campus. Certainly can get hold of Geo. And Emily Heaton is heading up the newly renamed regenerative agriculture area in crop sciences. So there are two that you might be able to talk to. They'll both be on the Farm Assets Conference that's coming up on December the 15th. Let's get some questions. If you want to put these in the boxes, you can do so right now. I'll give you just a moment to do that. And in the mean space, I'll remind you that our sponsors for the day include the TIA Center for Farmland Research, Compeer Financial, Corteva, Farm Credit, Illinois Corn, Growmark, and the Illinois Soybean Association, the educational partners, of course, of the college bases, that's Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences, and the Department of Agricultural and Consumer Economics, which Gary Schnitke is a member of, along with the University of Illinois Extension and FBFM. I know we have at least one question. We talked a lot about, at the end of this production, about some of the programs that people can find for incentives. They want to know if you have to be in one of the counties that's covered by PCM, or if these incentives are available in all the counties across the state and other parts of the Midwest, I would think. And I don't know, Laura or Megan, do you want to take a shot at that one?
Well, I can start out, and I'll turn it over to Megan. The programs. Well, first of all, the counties we already showed are the ones that are currently being served by PCM, and we don't have immediate plans right now to expand that within Illinois. But some of the actual incentive programs that were shown are available statewide. And Farmers for Soil Health is the first one that really jumps out. And PCM is the technology partner that's available, or the, I should say, the technical support partner that's available to all farmers in Illinois to help them with enrollment and help them get started with that. So we are happy to do that. You can go to our website and we can help you get started with that. And if farmers across Illinois, anyone out, even outside of the PCM region, is wanting a little bit of help with navigating some of the requirements, the expectations, and the programs, Illinois Corn, or I should say the PCM program, and our staff with Illinois Corn and Illinois Soybean are happy to help any farmers across Illinois with those decisions as they're trying to navigate that. We can help to point you towards some resources and ask some key questions that might get you going in the right direction with deciding which of these programs is right for you. It's a lot to navigate, and we want to be sure that everyone's making the best decision for themselves. Megan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So the ISAP Cover Crop Incentive Directory and the Ecosystem Service Market Guide both have a category showing what geographies all of the programs across the state are available in. So check that out. There's definitely probably multiple programs available in whatever county you're farming in.
I would add that if you're looking for that, it's fairly simple to get to the website. It is really full of information. ISAP stands for Illinois Sustainable Agriculture Partnership Program, and the address is ilsustainableag.org. That's ilsustainableag.org. It's easy enough to get to. Another question that we have is, when will cover crops expand to northern Illinois? Are there climate issues going northward? Anybody want to take a stab at that one?
So you can grow cover crops in northern Illinois, and there is a number of farmers in northern Illinois and other northern places that do grow cover crops. Obviously, the production practices are going to vary a bit, and gets cold faster up and later up north, so you have to take that into consideration. Actually, I have a question for Zach, and I wanted to know how he thought cover crops did this year with the dry weather. What was your experiences with crops and dry weather and cover crops?
Sure. It's a good question. So I referenced a couple times in my little spiel about not taking a big hit, maybe a couple bushels. So this year, I did personally have a little bit of a hit. That was the 2 bushel reference. Again, not a big one, but due to the dry weather, and it was a multitude of things, but I had some rye that I terminated. Sometimes in the spring that can be tricky. It was plenty warm enough when I did it. Didn't quite get all of it, so probably left about 20% that just didn't terminate fully. 20-25%. These were enlist beans, so I was coming back with some Roundup in the post pass. Decided just to wait. That was my own management decision to wait and terminate that rye, the remaining rye in the post pass. Well, it did turn hot and dry. So in that case, where the rye was still living, it began to use the limited soil moisture that was there for the soybeans, and ultimately, affected the yield of the soybeans slightly. But I had heard of some other scenarios where that was the case. I do think we probably didn't lose as much. We lost soil moisture, root moisture, but we probably also preserved some surface moisture with the rye kind of acting as a mulch. So again, kind of that ebb and flow that was good and bad. It wasn't all good, it wasn't all bad, but that was kind of the experience I had with the dry weather this year. Now, had I terminated that rye 100% and it was all terminated by the time it turned hot and dry, I would have seen, probably a little more of the good with the ground cover kind of protecting that bare dirt from the hot, dry sun and those times during the summer. So
Well, we've reached the top of the hour. It is time to wrap up our Cover Crops 101. You just heard from Zach Wells. He's a farmer from Homer, Illinois. We were also joined today by Gary Schnicke from the University of Illinois, Megan Miller from Illinois Soybean Association, and Laura Gentry from the Illinois Corn Growers Association. Behind the scenes, Jim Baltz has been making things go very well. In fact, that last picture there you see of the McFarland Bell Tower, or Carillon, on the Urbana-Champaign campus of the University of Illinois was taken by him, I think, fairly recently. And if you want to know where Jim and Gary and Laura are located, that building just to the left of the bell tower is Mumford Hall, the home of the College of Agricultural and Consumer and Environmental Sciences. They're right there, right now. So we do appreciate them being with us today. We also appreciate you taking the time to spend with us on this FarmDoc Daily Webinar. I've been your MC for the day, University of Illinois Extension's Todd Gleason. Thank you for joining us.